And I also, what I may do, yeah, I just started the broadcast, and what I'm also planning on doing is, I think that, yeah, I may share this link onto my Facebook page, because that means people will be able to watch us live even as we're doing it if I do that. Because
Yeah.
some people are into watching live streams.
Yeah.
Yeah, although for some reason, whenever I have Google Hangouts open, then the Google Chrome button seems to disappear. That's a weird, oh well, whatever. It doesn't matter. People will be watching this anyway. So I'll just go ahead and introduce what we're doing. Hey people, this is Chandler Klebs. I'm Chandler Klebs, and I'm here with Poffo Ortiz, and we're going to be talking about some ideas that we had. See, Poffo and his friend Peter Moriarty. Is that how his name is said?
I think it's Moriarty.
Moriarty. Okay, yeah, I said it right the first time. Yeah, Peter Moriarty, who has also joined us recently for our Free Will, Science, and Religion podcast. Poffo and Peter are great friends who are both pantheists, and they have been talking pantheism and biopantheism, biosophy, whatever, like all these different terms, and they agree on much but have slight disagreements in their worldviews and how they want to go about making a better world. And so we don't have Peter with us right at this moment. He's busy right now, but Poffo and I are doing this this hangout, which should be recorded on my YouTube channel, just to let people know what we're planning. And so it's sort of like informal right now. And I wanted to mention personally that I listened to the recording between Trick Slattery and Poffo. They did, and they're coming at it from different worldviews, you know. It was like a 3-hour talk, and
4 hours. 4 hours.
Yeah. It was 3 hours long, and it was very insightful, because there was a lot of disagreement, and yet I feel like the fundamental agreement between Trick and Poffo is pretty much the same thing. They both want to reduce suffering to sentient creatures, but we just disagree on how to go about it, you know?
Our our worldviews are entirely different. I mean, he's essentially like an existential nihilist, and I am a pantheist. So, he views nature as harsh and horrible and cruel and like the source of all suffering, and it is. But I just feel like he's far too preoccupied with the negative aspects, and it's really ironic for me to say that because I mean I'm considered a pessimist by most people, and like that's normally my view, is to just look at the negative and be overwhelmed by it. But I think he genuinely cares about humanity, and he cares about sentient life. And Trick and Peter and myself, we all have the same agenda, the same goals in mind. But our worldviews are vastly different. And even me and even Peter and I, Peter I would say is much more mystical, and he comes at it from a completely different tradition where he wants to embrace and acknowledge sort of the universal truths within all religions, and he sees he puts much more stock in like the subjective experience, whereas I put much more I have much more confidence, and my focus and my my emphasis is on science and on biology and on like the real world and like what is tangible, like the physical existence. But that doesn't discount, from my point of view, that doesn't discount the numinous and the mystical experience and the transcendent experience. I don't believe in a transcendent realm, but I absolutely believe that humans can have a transcendent experience. And so there's a lot of subtle differences, a lot of sort of nuanced aspects to this, and he and I have like a long history together because we were originally working together. I was trying to help promote his philosophy, biotheism, organismic philosophy, and biotheism is what he calls it, and his Facebook page is called Biosophy. Anyway, we were working together, and I was originally trying to help promote, and just I created the page as like a platform for him to espouse his ideas and stuff. And then just because of personality differences, and you know, he's very, very committed to his work, and it's almost like that's his baby. So anyone else, he doesn't want anyone else misrepresenting it. And so there's a lot of conflicts and stuff, and we kind of parted ways. We're still friends, and I still admire and respect him immensely. He's one of the smartest guys I've ever met, and absolutely agree with what he's trying to create. And he was a huge inspiration for what motivated me to create Biopan. But again, we have our differences, you know. So I think it would be interesting for us to have like a friendly debate, and so that sort of highlight the differences in our personalities and our character, showing like our individual takes on it and the directions we would come at it. As far as Trick goes, Trick is like my Michael Shermer. I just said this to him in the group, that he represents the staunch materialist atheist who kind of will keep me grounded, and no matter what, he's not going to lie to me, and he's going to, like, you know, he cares about the truth. And I feel the exact same way. Like, I care more about what's true than what makes me feel good. I care more about, you know, the reality that's all around us than, you know, inventing or getting caught up in some self-delusion of this personification of nature, which is what most atheists would accuse us of, is personifying nature and focusing on the warm, fluffy stuff, and not paying enough attention to the horror and the atrocity and the violence and the cruelty that exists even apart from human intervention, just what goes on in nature every day. And so that's a lot of what our conversation was with me and Trick. And I think we covered a lot of ground, and thought it was really productive. I would recommend that to anyone who has the patience to actually listen to us. But I was saying it was almost 4 hours. It was more than 3. We were going at it for a long time.
Oh yeah. So, yeah, and there's a few things I wanted to say about that. You know, it's amazing how the people who have disagreements are often the people who are agreed on something already. Like, they have disagreements about their agreement, which is funny. It's extremely funny because, as you know, my main life's work, probably my biggest life's work is debunking the myth of free will. And there's a reason for that. And all the co-hosts, you know, George and Trick and Jamie, WSD, and all these people, we all agree that free will is totally an illusion. The idea that our choices are somehow chosen by us rather than determined by prior causes or acausal events for those who believe in it. Like, Trick tends to think acausal events might be a possibility, whereas George and I are like, what? You know, but that doesn't matter as far as free will is concerned. And I know that you stated before we started this hangout, like, you know, you don't think that alone is enough. And I agree. I agree that just explaining that we don't have free will is not enough to change the world for that much. Although I do believe it's a required and necessary step. And you may disagree with that, but here's my reason.
I agree. Yeah. I just think it has to do with the approach that you can't come out and overtly state that people don't have free will, because most people don't even have the correct definition of free will. Most people define free will as the ability to make choices, or the fact that they have a will, just a will. And we all have a will. We all have our convictions, our desires. We all are motivated to do certain things. My point is that the abolition of the free will myth, what I'm trying to say is on a grand scale, in terms of on the populace, I feel like it's really irrelevant. It's not the levels that people are functioning on. I said this in the very first podcast with you guys. I said that people aren't functioning on a logical, rational, philosophical level. If we all were, then of course we'd say, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. That's not how people function. So you really have to appeal to their cultural conditioning, their emotions, their more primitive aspects. And that's not to say, you know, cater to anybody or couch the truth, but what I'm trying to say is pick 10 people and explain, you know, what you guys talk about to them, and in an everyday you know, in an everyday sense, like in terms of what's applicable to their life, it really wouldn't even have that much of a difference. It only really affects those who are already philosophically minded, who are already intellectuals. You understand? So my take is, teach that we don't have free will, but just say it in different words. You know, say everything is causational. Everything can be traced back and almost an endless stream of events, a chain of events going all the way back to the Big Bang, and say that we are a product of our environment and we are a product of our experiences, and that when a person does something, it's a whole combination, it's a whole plethora of things that have influenced them to do that individual particular thing. So when you want to dispel free will to eliminate blame and the idea of punishment and things like that, you can say that person is responsible, but there's a reason why they did what they did. They, are a product of their environment. They're a product of their upbringing. They have numerous social fallacies that are in their minds, and all these belief systems, and people are under extreme pressure. You have this idea, like what Jamie would talk about, is structural violence, as the Venus Project and Peter Joseph talks about. Structural violence is almost the cause of all the corruption and crime and evil in the world at this point. So it's explaining sort of the real the root causes. It's getting to the root causes of things. And so I would approach it in that way. Instead of talking about free will, I would say we have to understand the root causes behind why people do things. We have to rehabilitate, not punish. We have to try to prevent behavior, not just attack the symptoms, things like that. So I agree with you guys. I just think I'm always very cognizant of how things sound to the masses, of how people will take things on a surface level, and it's very important in my movement. And with this, I want to always stop you guys and be like, guys, we're just a bunch of nerds talking philosophy. Nobody really gets it. But we got to get to the root causes. We got to attack the actual problems, and that's where I feel Biopan would come in, because I'm doing the same work that you're trying to do. I'm just using different language, and I'm coming at it from a different perspective. Just interrupt me if I'm babbling.
I have a few things to say about that. First of all, you're 100% right. Most people are not on a rational, logical level. They're not like us nerds. Because me and you and Peter and the other guys who do all these podcasts I'm part of, almost all of them are nerds. Like, they're extremely logical to the very point of pointing out all the logical fallacies. I mean, you can't hardly say anything without somebody pointing out, well, that's a fallacy. That's
most people don't even know what a logical fallacy is, Chandler.
Yeah, I know.
That's a red herring. That's a straw man argument. They're like, the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, and I don't have them memorized, but I do hear enough conversations. I mean, I've listened to the Thinking Atheist podcast. I've listened to the Atheist Experience. I've listened to Waking Up with Sam Harris. I've listened to a lot of science, skepticism-based podcasts, and I have to say that there's a lot of things like argument ad populum, like a lot of people believe this, so it must be true, or argument from authority, like, well, this expert scientist says this, so it must be right. And there's problems with all these because we can point out times when it's not true. But yeah, most people are not aware of these. They're not that logical. They're very emotional. And so when somebody punches them in the face or hurts them in some way, steals their money or rapes somebody they know or whatever, whenever someone does something wrong to them, they get all mad and they want revenge. They're just like, this person hurt me and I will hurt them. So, and they think in their minds that hurting the other people is going to scare them away from hurting them, like overpowering them with fear to stop them from hurting them. But really, then that person seeks revenge. And this whole cycle of retributive justice, that is completely dependent upon the belief in free will. But I agree with you that, we need to focus more on psychology, science, biology, the actual cause of our behavior, and that's what it is.
Right.
I mean, that's why I call myself a determinist. I don't really just call myself an anti-free willist, but it's about why, you know, things happen, and that's what it's always been about.
Getting to the core, getting to the root causes. Chandler, I'm sorry. I got to get somebody's at my door right now. I'll be right back. I'm really sorry.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. Yeah. Yeah. While he's gone. Yeah. Since I can't just stop the broadcast and then restart it, because it then just stops the whole thing. Yeah. While he's gone, I just wanted to say, I mean, this is a good conversation. This will prepare us for so much of our future talks. It's really good, you know. Yeah, wait for him to come back.
So sorry, dude. You were just mentioning how you gotta say something to your mom so that she doesn't keep coming and asking you for stuff.
Oh yeah,
my mom just stopped by, and I told her that I was gonna be doing the podcast and stuff, but she couldn't get the lock on the door. So
yeah.
Anyway, I apologize. I mean, you can edit that out if you need to.
Yeah, it's interesting because as far as the recorded hangout itself that ends up on my YouTube channel, I can't really edit that video. But of course, there is one thing I have thought of. I have thought of, you know, just releasing the audio from these, like finding a way to download the hangout, just releasing the audio for people who want to listen, don't want to look at our faces.
Can you do that? Can you split it? You could split it like that? You can do that?
I think so. Like one time I downloaded a hangout that I did with Kenneth Justice. I used like this software that downloads like any YouTube video, whether it's my channel or anyone else's YouTube channel. I could download the videos and open the video in Audacity and extract the audio.
Oh yeah, there you go. So
yeah, so that's something that could be done, because yeah, this is a conversation between you and I. So yeah, but anyway, the point is, yeah, we both want to make a better world, and so does Peter, so do all my other co-hosts, but we have to find the way that appeals to the masses, as you said, because most people are not autistic weirdos like me. They're not. They're not somebody such as me that is like, you know, oh, let's just not have sex and everybody stop reproducing so that, you know, with the human population zero, there's no more suffering of humans. I mean, it makes so much sense to me, but other people don't think that way.
No, it's absolutely contrary. It's contrary to our biological imperatives. It runs contrary to our religious cultural upbringing, like the religious influence of Judeo-Christian, you know, belief systems, which says the exact opposite. You know, be fruitful and multiply. It goes against what most people consider life to be all about. You know, sex and children and families and all these different things. So you have a very I'd say you're like a eunuch for the philosophy. You know, like you've chosen kind of like a priest, you know, kind of like a priest would be celibate to completely devote himself, you know, but you're not doing it as a form of bodily mortification or asceticism. You're doing it because your philosophy actually compels you to think that way. And I'm an anti-natalist as well. Me and Trick talked about this. I think that I value life, but it's not that I value just reproduction. I don't want people to misunderstand and think that when I say life, that equates to reproduction. It doesn't. I think the human race needs to absolutely slow down, and there needs to be, I'm not going to get into this because I'll sound like, you know, like a Nazi, but you know, there just needs to be much more thought and contemplation put into it before people, you know, before people reproduce and have children, because it's not considered in the way that it should, all the ramifications of it, and it's generally done for selfish reasons. So and they even justify, first of all, women have that maternal instinct, and so it's in them, and you're fighting that. Men have the sex drive and the testosterone, and you know, everything is about sex, and sex sells, so you're fighting all of that. Human relationships, romance, all of this is glorified to the highest degree. Every song from the 50s was about falling in love and your girlfriend and your sweetheart and all these different things. So I mean, it's really all this stuff is working against us. We need to see the bigger picture. That we are one interconnected, gigantic organism that is functioning and all interdependent and interconnected. So it's not just about your pleasure, and it's not just about what makes you feel good and meeting your needs and your desires. And it's not just, life's not just about, you know, you go to school, go to college, you get a good job, you settle down, you meet a girl, you have a family, you know, and that's it. You're just perpetuating this cycle that doesn't necessarily need to be. We can be single all of our lives, or we can have our significant other. We don't have to get married. There's a lot of different, you know, alternative lifestyles. They shouldn't be alternative lifestyles. They should just be
they're valid lifestyles just like anything else.
Right.
My point is, and since I brought it up, I wanted to mention, you know, like I've joked, like in the podcast I've done with Monique, like I'm almost a Catholic priest, but not quite, because I'm not Catholic. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in anything supernatural. So it's certainly not done. It's not like I'm celibate because I think I earn brownie points for an afterlife. It's not because I think I'll go to hell if I have sex or something. Like some people are taught that by their religion. You know, it's not about that at all.
Peter and I were just discussing this false concept of what purity is, of what holiness is, that human beings have projected their own idealized notions of what purity and righteousness and what godliness is, and it's completely fallacious. It needs to be ethically, you know, learning from the consequences of our actions, of what affects the individual, the community, the society, the biosphere. That's what we need to consider, and not this idealized notion that anything that has to do with the body is ugly and sinful, that anything that has to do with our genitalia is wrong, or is against you know, God and holiness and God, religions.
Which
especially
really, it really contradicts with your pantheistic view in a sense.
Yeah, absolutely. We embrace the physical and the body. We embrace the human animal. We have a completely different and that doesn't mean that we're hedonistic. We're not. It's not hedon. If anything, we're more Epicurean. You know, wanting to desire the finer things in life, but at the same time, I would say there's not really a word yet for what we represent in terms of our spirituality. It is a holistic mindset. It is all about balance. It's all about recognizing that we are not just spiritual beings. We are not just psychological, mental. You know, we're not just walking brains, all logic and rationale. We are a combination. We're not just primitive, sinful, you know, disgusting, corrupt, fallen creatures either. And yet we are animals. So it's a balance of all those things, that like we are highly evolved animals that have these incredible cognitive abilities, the abilities to think and reason and process abstract, you know, complex thoughts, and think and ruminate and dream and create and build and you know, innovate. And yet at the same time, we have these incredibly destructive, primitive tendencies. And like Christopher Hitchens would say, our adrenal glands are too big, our frontal lobe is too small. We're in the process of evolving. So we're a paradox. We're greater than the other animals on this planet in some ways, in terms of our influence, in terms of our ethics, our morals, our values have developed. That the fact that we have ethics and morals and values. At the same time, we're also this Earth's destroyers. We're also the scourge of the planet. But we can't look at one or the other. We're not just angels and we're not just demons. We're both. We literally can go either way, and we have that. We have potential. We have the potential to be the stewards of this planet, the stewards of the earth. You know, to unite and exhibit altruism and compassion, or to just continue on in selfishness and competition, to continue reverting back to our primitive ways, all these naturalistic fallacies of thinking, well, if it's done in nature, since lions chase down a gazelle and kill them and rip them apart, then that's okay. Then it's okay for me to be a meat eater. It's okay for me to consume flesh because animals do it. So what's wrong? It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, I know, naturalistic
common
policy.
sense. There is so much that goes on in the animal kingdom that we don't do, that we've risen above. And yet at the same time, and here's the balance aspect in biopan and biotheism, the balance is, yet there's so much to learn from nature. Everything that we are and everything that we've become and everything, we owe everything to nature. And nature is the antecedent intelligence that came before us. So there is an intelligence embedded in nature. Nature has its own intelligence, and we have a different kind of intelligence. And we just need to embrace all of that in a balanced way. And not go too far in one direction and not go too far in the other. Balance is a huge thing. It's a huge part of
and the whole evolution thing is very interesting, because when you think about it, evolution is really pretty much based on what survives long enough to reproduce before it dies, and those traits carry on and become more dominant. But what's really, really ironic, Poffo, is we actually live at a time where people are evolved enough to come to the philosophical realization that reproducing is really kind of stupid under our current world system.
Right now, human reproduction right now is the most self-centered, stupidest thing we can do. And then of course they jump right to the extreme, and they'll say, well, then what? If people stop mating, if people stop procreating, what's going to happen? There's going to be no people left. Obviously, someone somewhere will still be reproducing, but it's no one gets this. It's just about having a different philosophy. It's about changing the philosophy and recognizing our place in the biosphere, our place as highly evolved, intelligent organisms on a planet with 100 other trillion organisms that are all competing and fighting for space and resources as well. It's that we're part of the ecosystem. We're not at the top. We're not the masters of everything. We're part of it, and since we're so highly evolved, we have a greater responsibility. It does not mean that we should dominate and control and manipulate and exploit other plants and animals. We absolutely have a greater responsibility. We're like the superheroes of this planet, with great power comes great responsibility, like Spider-Man.
Yeah, in a sense. And that word responsibility has so many different meanings. But I totally get what you're saying there. And see, here's what I would like to see. Now, even though I'm totally fine with an example of the world where all humans do completely die out, and there will be no humans left to feel sad about there being no humans. I mean, duh,
That's a separate discussion right there. We talk about.
Oh yeah, for sure. But what I want to say is that, I don't expect that will actually happen. But my point is, let's say enough people embrace this philosophy,
right,
to where instead of 7, 8, 9 billion people, we go down to say 1 billion humans, and then that means that there will be, in relation to the resources and land available, with that fewer people, they'll all be happier than 7 billion of us are now.
Of course, I'm a huge proponent of that humans need to. Peter we butt heads all the time because he's very fearful of sort of transhumanism and the direction of that technology is going, and that human society is the idea of integrating technologies, nanotechnologies, and biological sort of cyborgs taking over the world, and integrating these things into our bodies. That he's very much a purist when it comes to maintaining sort of the human animal and the respect for the human animal. But at the same time, what I'm saying is that there just needs to be like this balance, that it can't be like one or the other. Like, I foresee a world where we are utilizing the technologies, the advanced technologies, but we also live in smaller groups. We are deriving the benefits of all the advancements we've made, but we have a holistic, almost like a more of appreciation for the rustic. So that what I was trying to say was, I think we should completely downsize and live in smaller groups of no more than 50 to 100 people. I think society should go back to being like villages and small towns. And I think that as soon as it escalates and it goes beyond that, then you have problems. We should not be standing side by side with like 50 to 100 other people, and we never talk to them. We have no idea who they are. It's unnatural. We're social creatures as primates. It only makes sense that we should live in smaller groups. So I'm a huge proponent of not only sort of downsizing the population, but downsizing the density of cities, of towns and stuff like that. That we need to spread out. The earth can provide everyone with everything that we need, and it's renewable. I mean, everything is renewable. People say this a lot. They're like, oh, we live on a finite planet with finite resources. But the truth is, because of the life principle that I believe in, the earth is continuously producing. I mean, we have UV rays. We have energy from the sun. We have energy from water, from wind. We have hydro. We have so many clean energy sources. And think about how fruits and vegetables grow. Like, as long as there are seeds, there can be plants, there can be vegetation, there can be foliage and food. So it's not that the earth lacks food; it lacks a conscientious, responsible management of the resources. We need to give people access to these resources, not limit it and have this middleman and utility companies and
you sound like
all the industries. What's that?
You sound totally like Jack Fresco right now.
Oh, of course. I mean, I've been influenced, for years, from Fresco and PJ, what they promote. I mean, this is where I have learned about permaculture and planned obsolescence and all the ridiculous construct of money. That what money is. It's literally just a way to keep people in control, keep people in power, keep people oppressed, keep people stratified. This is not a sane society. This is not a logical form of existence, and it all needs to change. So if you want to get into, if you want to start talking about biopan or biotheism, or I could touch on biotheism a little bit, but let Peter, when he comes on, discuss that more. But we can talk more about sort of, my vision and my what I seek to create in terms of how this can benefit the world and how it can make things better.
Yeah, and about that specifically, I want to get into a little bit of a topic about morality or ethics, because I think that is the heart of this issue. Whereas, people look, Trick and Mitch and I, and we all have weird disagreements on this morality or ethics thing. And what's interesting about it is that it's very hard, because most people are not smart enough to get this. There's still different degrees of pleasure and pain. There's still happiness and sadness that different life forms experience. And so morality or ethics to me is all just about trying to get as much of that good and reduce the bad. It's very, very simple. And if your biopantheism or whatever pantheistic philosophy that you or Peter or George have, if that can help make a better world, then my motivation is to promote you and what you have to say. And I know, Poffo, that you have joined us in our podcast recently, and so has Peter. And I know that you're a little bit hesitant to, impose your views, as you said, on people. But here's how I look at it is that we have already, for well over 150 episodes, had a chance to promote our views. We've talked about almost every political or religious or ethical topic under the sun. But then you and Peter came along, and you're we have some new blood, we have some new fresh air, a new thing to discuss, because we do have to, as long as we're still living here, all us humans are here, we have to, with our different worldviews, still find agreements that we can base a society on. And so I don't expect that you and Trick will ever convert each other to worldviews. That would take forever, even if it was possible. But we have to focus on where we do agree, so as a way to make us all somewhat satisfied. It's a compromise, and I don't like compromise, because we all want our own way. And the different co-hosts, they all sort of want to take the podcasts in their direction, obviously, And so, you know, Mitch has his way. He wants to take things which is very different than the way George wants to, for example. But so it's like a very difficult balance of trying to make
let me ask you a question.
world.
I understand. Let me ask you a question, Chandler. What would you say would be the uniting universal factor that actually unites us all? Or let me pose it in a different way. No matter what you think is going to make the world a better place, no matter what Trick thinks, no matter what Mitch or George or I, no matter what belief systems we're coming from or what we're espousing, do you realize that, or let's just ask the question, which one of us can live without water?
None of us.
Which one of us can live without food?
No one.
Which one of us can live without clean air? Which one of us can live off the planet at this point in time? Which one of us can make our abode apart from the natural world? And let me take it further. What could we possibly do, or where could we possibly go where we would escape nature? Nature and our biology is the universal. It's the universal tie. It is the key to all of this. That's why it's called biopantheism, because it's life-centered. That's what biocentrism means, life-centered. That's what I teach and promote, that it doesn't matter what your views are, what your philosophical views are, what your religious views are. It really doesn't matter. When it comes down to it, we all bleed. We all feel pain. We all seek pleasure, as you said. We all need clean, healthy food, clean water, clean air. It all goes back to our biology, to our physical existence on this planet. Now, you could philosophize, and there could be spiritual people and say, well, you know, the heavenly kingdom is what I care about, and my body is temporary, and I'm focusing on the spiritual, and I'm perfecting my soul. And well, that's great. Well, to us, we're looking at you, and your body is rotting, and you're still gonna feel pain if I kick you in the teeth. Okay, you're still gonna get hungry after a while. Maybe you're a breatharian, is that what they're called now? And you can do the sun gazing, and you could, but we're not at that level yet. Not all of us, anyway. Maybe we'll be able to draw our energy and our substance from the sun and from the earth energetically eventually as we evolve. But right now, we need food, we need water, we need shelter, we need companionship, we need a human solidarity. We are social creatures, and many people can isolate themselves, but when it comes down to it, there's nothing that you do or anyone does that isn't affected by everything else, and there's nothing that everyone does that doesn't affect you. So this is beyond just my personal slant on things. Like I'm literally talking about our biology, our physical existence on this planet. That's what should be our priority. That's where the emphasis is on the human experience. And the human experience is as an animal, as a carbon-based life form that is susceptible to disease and aging, and we are products of nature. We are beholden to nature. So why aren't we looking to nature? Why aren't we making nature our top priority? Because it is nature that allows me to speak. It's nature that allows me to see. It is nature that has created this environment and perfected these organisms to coexist within that environment. That's why every species is perfectly suited and perfectly adaptable to their environment, except us, because we have there's something different about humans, that we have the ability to manipulate our environment to a greater degree than any beaver or termite. We can shape and reshape and manipulate the weather, and we have greater influence and impact than any other species on this planet right now. So what does that mean? As I said before, we have greater responsibility, but why are we're going so far? I don't want to say we're going so far into intellectualism, because most people aren't that smart. We're going so far into into identity and individuality, and sort of meeting these emotional needs instead of using logic and reason, and formulating our societies, structuring it around, not just what's best for the individual, but what's best for the whole. We need to have a holistic systems model, and that means that, recognizing all the things I just talked about, that the thing that should be of utmost concern and priority should be our health, our sustainability, essentially. So that's why Biopan, it's an extension of pantheism. It's taking pantheism to its logical conclusion, where we not only we view nature as divine, and we recognize that leads to morality and ethics. That leads to altruism and compassion. The cat's like licking my arm as I say this.
Yeah, well, I agree with what you're saying here. And see, here's the deal. This is not just opinion. This isn't just, see, my problem is that people think all opinions are valid. They're like some people are truth relativists. Like they think there's your truth and my truth. Sure. But this is an objective fact. All those things you mentioned. None of us can live without air or water. None of us, unless you're a tardigrade or something, at least as far as none of us humans here can do these things. We can't live without food. We can't live without water. We can't just live without outer space. These are facts that we can't do these things. And we are all pretty much the same. Our biology is what ties us all together. And then we have all these different political philosophies and moral philosophies and religions. And we have this illusion of separation. I call it the illusion of separation. We have this illusion that we're all separate and that we're all doing our separate things. But really, we're all stuck together in this same boat together.
So imagine if a new philosophy was taught. Imagine if a new worldview was established that says we're not separate. We're actually all one gigantic organism. We're one being, and we need to work together, just like all the trillions of cells in the body work together, just like all the organs work together, just like all the life forms in any ecosystem fuels and feeds off of itself, off of each other. And there is a relationship there. There's a symbiotic relationship. We need to view human society in terms of a symbiotic relationship with each other, with the environments, with the plants and animals that surround us, with the earth. Like we have gone too far into abstraction, so that we no longer. And I'm not saying that technology is a bad thing. I'm not saying we should. The advancements, the Industrial Revolution, the scientific revolution, and going all the way back to the Renaissance and the invention of the light bulb and using electricity and being able to power machines and create these things, and now with computers and being able to digitally program stuff, to print things in 3D printers. This is all a beautiful thing. It just needs to be applied in a holistic way, and not just benefiting the few, not just benefiting the elites or the 1%. Like it needs to be. I am the first one to say most human beings are uneducated. Most human beings on this planet are deeply steeped in cultural. Only word I could say is ignorance. So it's not that, like, I don't know how to say this. It's not that we're all created equal. We're actually not. There is stratification already there. So the people with the most intelligence, I would say, the people who are looking at things holistically, not just scientists, but scientists who view things in a holistic sense, engineers and physicists, and people who are specialists in agriculture, in botany, in the things that actually fucking matter. Who gives a shit about who wins, the next baseball game? How does that affect the planet? It's literally just a distraction. Who gives a shit? I mean, this is a touchy subject, because you'd say, well, films and movie and Hollywood is it's completely superficial. It's a waste of time. But I disagree, because I actually think that's a form of communication. How many people have been inspired by Avatar or by movies that can educate? That can educate and can, like, show. That can teach a biocentric philosophy. So that's a medium that even though it is corrupt and it can be mindless entertainment at times.
Yeah, it's a tool just like anything else.
It can be used for good or for evil. So I would say just our entire focus just needs to change. And if we really want to make things better, minimize pain and suffering, heal the sick, feed the poor, all the humanitarian concerns, we got to get back to what actually matters. So let me try to bring it home here. This is the segue to my point. Imagine if we had a biocentric philosophy that viewed life in the highest regard, that life itself, not the ability to reproduce, I mean, that's part of it, obviously, but life itself, the self-organizing, intrinsic, inherent life principle that's in all things, what makes something valuable, what makes something sacred to us, to pantheists or to biopans, what makes it sacred is the fact that it's older than us. It came before us. It's what's allowed our bodies to evolve and adapt and change. It's what gives us our intelligence. We need to recognize the sanctity of life and view the earth as sacred. Imagine a world that viewed all life as sacred. Immediately, just that one premise alone eliminates competition and greed and violence and war and chaos and theft and lying and corruption, because we're honoring the divinity. We're honoring the life principle. So honor the life principle, and you eliminate half the problems in the world right now. Respect the process. Learn to coexist with nature. Learn to live in harmony with nature. Move with the seasons. Listen to your body. Do things in balance. Don't go so far to the extreme, whether it's asceticism or overindulgence. I'm a huge proponent of balance in all things. Veganism is an extension of this. Recognizing the life force, that what makes a living organism valuable is not its utilitarian purpose to us. It's not it's that it's a commodity or however many thousand sheep or cattle or chickens because they can feed us.
Yeah.
If we can sustain ourselves, and on fruits and vegetables, and the benefit of that, and the takeaway from that is that it's what our physiology requires anyway. If we can live without having to kill, without having to torture and mutilate and exploit and manipulate and oppress other life forms, then it is our ethical duty to do so. It should be first and foremost to respect life. And okay, then there's got to be the balance, right? Because we've talked about, like, if a mosquito is going to bite me and suck my blood.
Oh yes, the mosquito discussion.
a tick is on me or my animals. This doesn't mean that you can't. This doesn't exclude self-defense, of course, because you honor the divinity within first. So of course you defend yourself if your life is being threatened. But how often are our lives really being threatened by a chicken or a sheep or a goat or a cow? No, there's absolutely no reason to kill other animals when we can absolutely thrive and live in a more sustainable way and save the environment, if we move to a plant-based diet. So this is a natural extension of recognizing all life is sacred and all life as divine.
Yeah, that self-defense principle has played itself out in my life a few times, because I try to take spiders out of the house without killing them. You know what I mean? I never once yet have I had a specific time where I've actually had to kill one to get it outside. It's interesting. And of course I had a leech on me. Actually, there was a time when I was a kid that I had a lot of leeches on me, but that's a whole other story. But
wow.
But when last time I got a leech on me, I was swimming down at the creek. A really bad idea, by the way. There's some deadly stuff in there. And I got this leech on me, and I could not pull it off in the air, so I had to go back into the water and pull it off. It was hard and it hurt, but I got it out. So the leech went on and lived its life, and I didn't have to kill it.
Well, that's fascinating. Sure. I mean, if you don't have to kill it, because a leech, as disgusting and repulsive as it is, it's just another organism that's trying to feed. It's just another organism that's trying to survive. If we can view things, living organisms, as just other aspects of ourselves, just, other creatures, other differentiated aspects, manifestations of the omnia, then we can respect, and we can care for life, and we don't have to kill. Like it's hardly ever like us or them, situation. So
yeah, situations where you have to kill are exceptionally rare.
Right now, and I want to make the point that, of course, this wasn't always the case, and this is why humans began to eat meat and hunt to begin with. When vegetation was scarce during the Ice Age, we had to, because there's no other way to sustain ourselves. But we've moved beyond that. We're in a completely different paradigm now. So why are we still living on a paleo diet? Why are we still thinking that we're carnivores? We were opportunistic omnivores. That's what we were. And now we have the choice. But I don't want to get too far off. I want to try to stay focused here. But your anecdotal stories are a trip.
Oh, I know. And one thing leads to another. But this is part of it. This is part of life being all. And I would be described as a biopan in that sense, in that, to me, life is all. Because life really is what experiences things. And and the thing of things having value only makes sense in light of conscious life forms that experience it.
Sure. And that what you just said, I would say, on a gradient scale, obviously we have to make the decisions of at different times. We can't go so far abstract and say a plant is, what's the difference between killing a pig and a plant, because all is divine. This is actually a huge problem that I've encountered.
I saw that in your Facebook group.
You won't have to deal with this. You'll have to deal with this in another way. But with pantheists, it's extra difficult, because they make this ridiculous parallel, and they say, what's the difference between killing a plant and killing an animal? If everything is God, if everything is divine, I view all life as sacred. So what are you saying? So where does that logic lead? So then we don't kill plants. What do we eat? What do we eat? Eating vegetation, eating the flora that the earth provides, and especially eating fruits, because they continue to live, and they give up their seeds in that way to reproduce. It is still it's doing the least amount of harm. It's still the most ethical, most moral thing that you can do, that creates the least amount of impact on the environment. So it only makes sense. Like, even if plants are sentient on a certain level, which I actually believe that they are. I believe that all life is sentient on a certain level. But of course, biting into a carrot is not the same thing as biting into a live fish. Because there are pain sensors there. There's a complex nervous system there. You have, I don't even know why I should have to explain this. It's insulting to my intelligence and to the people. So it's all about balance. It's like, of course, biting into a live eel or hurting an animal, harming a living organism is different than harming a tree. But yet we should respect the trees. We should respect the plants. Plants actually respond better. The studies have shown, whether people think it's pseudoscience or not, that in these healthy environments where they play the music, or when they talk to their plants gently, because everything is energy. Because everything is really just vibrating energy at different levels of evolution. So that's the important thing.
I agree with that. See, I totally agree with that, Poffo. There is definitely some sort of awareness, some sort of consciousness, even with the plants and the bacteria. But for people to actually claim that say cutting open a watermelon and cutting open a live pig are the same thing, like, no way. There is a huge difference. No. Which one of them is screaming in pain and trying to run away?
Yeah, this is a. You and I are beyond this conversation, but I do have to deal with this a lot in pantheist groups, and it's very frustrating. So let's move on. Like, what would a world look like, or how could a biopantheist philosophy change things? Well, for starters, if we're speaking about the environment, there is no edict, in the Bible, old or new, that says to care for the earth. There is no ordinance or command that says to protect the environment, to care for the environment. What it actually says is the opposite, that the earth is here for us, that the earth is going to be destroyed by fire, that God's going to create a new world for us, that plants and animals are here for us to use, to dominate, to dictate, to control. These books were written in the Bronze Age, in the Iron and Bronze Age, where people were very, very intimately connected to the land, but everything revolved around goat herding and taking care of the animals, because that was their form of currency. They would trade goats and sheep and oxen and cows, and literally animals did not have that same respect. And on other cultures, in other parts of the world, obviously in pagan cultures, there was more respect, and cultures that believed more animistic in animism, and Native American cultures and stuff like that, there was a deep respect, and especially North American Indians, Native Americans, had this this great reverence for life, and even though they hunted and killed, they honored, and they said a prayer and they thanked it, and that's the right attitude to have. And it's because they weren't an agricultural society yet; they weren't growing massive amounts of food like we can now. So, and they traveled from place to place. A lot of them were nomadic, and they followed the buffalo and things like that. So, when you think about it, I mean, that's the right mentality. But yet, use the advancements that we have today, and apply all this, and we recognize that we don't have to kill. We don't have to kill animals at all. So, I don't want to get my train of thought.
What I wanted to say about that is, there is a huge difference in the philosophy of respecting life. Like, respecting life like we want to do is not supported by Christianity, Judaism, or Islam in any sense.
The body is considered corrupt. The body is considered shameful. It's the exact opposite, man. And it's led to all kinds of perversions and all kinds of divisive behavior because of people suppressing their natural inclinations and natural urges and instincts. We need to embrace our instincts. We need to not suppress our urges, but channel them in ways that are helpful and beneficial. Use sublimation, think in an altruistic sense. The point is, most modern religions, with the exception of Jainism, Buddhism, and Native American spirituality and neo-paganism, paganism and Buddhism and Jainism, really some aspects of Hinduism. Some aspects of Hinduism do the exact opposite, and they sacrifice bulls and to the gods. There's a pantheon of gods there still, so it's polytheism. But there's only a few. The rest, the monotheistic faiths, the Abrahamic religions, do not emphasize love and respect for nature. Because remember, God to them is separate from nature. God created the world. We have this duality of two things. There's God over here and nature over here. Pantheism says no, God and nature are one. They're one thing, and we honor and respect all life. We honor and respect our own divinity, and we do everything we can to minimize harm and pain and suffering, and promote this biocentric attitude.
Yeah, I wanted to say about that, I totally get what you're saying. Although what I actually see with many people, and this is the way I saw it all my life, is there's a three-way separation they have. They're like, there's God here, there's humans here, and then there's nature. That's how they're looking at it, as if, well, God created humans and the rest of nature, which they don't care about.
Right, or humans are here. Humans are separate from animals. Like, this is a huge thing. Just recognizing that human beings are animals. Most religious traditions do not see humans as animals because of exactly the qualities and the traits and the advancements we've made, evolutionarily speaking. Because of those qualities, that's why they view animals as separate. We always say humans and animals.
Yeah, I hate that.
It's even in our language. It's in our language. I say it too, because there is a distinction. But the point is, in terms of our ethics and our morals and our values and our philosophy, there really should be no distinction. There are many difficult things you'd say if there's a child in the road and you have the option there's a dog in the road and there's a child in the road, and you're going to hit one of them. Which one would you choose? I can't answer questions like that. I mean,
Yeah, I know those kinds
difficult.
of questions are just so stupid.
But I mean, because they're trying to make you choose. They're trying to say that one life or one organism is of greater value than the other, and we don't want to think of it like that. We want to view all life as sacred, and as far as we're able to not do any harm to any life forms.
Yeah, exactly.
Even to plants. If we can take from plants, if you have a basil, a basil plant or a mint plant, you take the leaves, but you keep watering it. You take care of it. You respect the cycle. You respect the process. It's not this materialistic. Obviously, we live in a physical world, but this concept of materialism and speciesism and this sort of selective empathy, it makes absolutely no sense that you would slaughter a pig but you would care for a dog, that you would you would help a little bird if it falls and breaks its wing, and you might nurse it back to health, but then you'll slit the throat of a chicken. It makes absolutely no sense. The chicken's the bird. The chicken in many cases may have a stronger bond with you, because of how intelligent they are.
Oh, I know. I totally get that. And see, Poffo, that's the kind of inconsistency in human behavior that drives me mad. It drives me totally crazy. And it's not just that I'm upset about the pain being caused to the animals. That's the biggest part. But it's also like I am personally annoyed that humans are that inconsistent and illogical.
It's understandable. It's understandable because we have made these leaps, these advancements in evolution. So we do appear different because we have language. I mean, all animals actually have language. They communicate and through body language and stuff. But because we have verbal diction and language, so we appear to be higher and more intelligent, and we are in certain ways. But my cat can see better than I can at night, and he's much more agile, even though he's fat and overweight. He's much more agile than I am, and he has a greater sense of smell. So they are more advanced in many ways than we are. We've evolved sort of inwardly. Homo sapiens have evolved internally, psychologically. In terms of our ability to create, to plan, to calculate, to ruminate, to contemplate these things. Animals don't have time for that. Since we were so successful as hominids, as primates, we've had the time to develop those faculties. But animals are just about survival, so they just get better and better and better at whatever they are and what they're doing. But if they become successful, they will also evolve. And this is another aspect. If every potential animal could evolve to become to evolve to the level of human consciousness, then we need to honor and respect those animals because they are just us, on the journey, like further behind or further ahead.
Yeah.
So to make that distinction is false. It's wrong.
Yeah. See, take for example the fact that, a dog or a cat typically doesn't live as long as humans. They don't live for 80 to 100 years like humans tend to do. So if we are more educated, if we do evolve more inwardly, I think that's because we're given more time to do so.
Absolutely. That's why. That's exactly why. It's a whole combination of environmental factors and opposable thumbs, being bipedal, the big brains, everything was working in our favor. But every other species, every other organism has that same potential. And that's what life is trying to do. Life is trying to just it's trying to put out the best possible version of itself that it can. It wants to live as long as possible. It wants to continue reproducing in order to, I believe, in a teleological, perspective, in order to bring about this higher level of consciousness. So,
yeah. And take, for example, the way we start out. Each one of us humans start out as a sperm and an egg combined. And before you know it, after all this replication of the original cell, then we have all these different features. We have our skin, we've got our hair, we've got the eyes, we have mucus in our nose, we've got all the different internal organs. We have all of these things which are all originally copied from what that sperm and egg that it started, but it evolved since then. And it happens in such a short time, considering when you consider what we start out as, and then
Sure.
in only a few years, we're already walking and talking humans as toddlers.
And again, I got to this is what I got to interject this, that that's the miracle of it all. That's the miracle of life. That programming, that in DNA and RNA and in the replication of cells, that is the miracles. We didn't create that.
Yeah.
Don't tell me there isn't a higher power when we didn't create ourselves. Nature created us, and nature allows for all this, and nature has this programming, this inclination, this penchant toward life and greater levels of self-awareness and cohesion. So let's talk about that. Like,
especially the term higher power. That one has always thrown me off when people ask me if I believe in a higher power, and I'm like, higher than what?
There's no higher power. There's no higher power than nature. There is nothing more powerful. There's nothing more influential. There's nothing greater. Why are people worshiping an invisible man in the sky when the most powerful thing in existence is all around them and inside of them and everywhere?
We don't need a higher power than nature. We don't need one. Every power that we want is part of nature. And what a lot of people mean, they mean like higher than human. Power. And it depends on what you're talking about, because take the arms of a gorilla that are way stronger than human arms, or take the trunk and legs of an elephant and see the power that they have.
Sure.
If we're talking in terms of power as in physical strength, well, then humans are puny. We're really puny.
Right. That gets back to what we're saying of how we evolved in a different way. We're no longer evolving. We're always going to evolve physically, but we're no longer evolving in adaptation. In an adaptational sense. Is that even a word? Adaptational. We're no longer evolving in a physical sense. In tandem with our environment. We are now in control of our own evolution, and so our brains are going to get bigger. Our brains are going to get bigger, and the parts that we're not using are going to sort of atrophy, and then the other parts are going to expand, and that's how evolution works. Nature has no idea of how it's going to turn out. That's the beauty of it. That's the joy of it. That's the novelty of it. It is going in all these different directions. It has no idea of the outcome. It just knows that it wants to be. It wants to exist. It wants to live. And I want to talk about this, that about the sort of the phenomenal, miraculous nature of the reproductive process of how a life form, comes into fruition. That's something that we should honor. That doesn't mean that we should just be breeders and keep making babies, because it doesn't make sense in our system right now, the way that the way we're headed in our societies. But that process itself should be honored. And I'm trying to get to the idea that, like, why aren't people respecting and honoring nature and seeing nature for what it really is? We are not personifying nature. This is not an anthropomorphic vision. We recognize nature for exactly what it is, for this all-encompassing, powerful thing that itself needs to be educated, follow me here, through us. We are the mind and heart, sort of the ethical and moral conscience of nature, because now we're recognizing that killing and lying and stealing are wrong, and competition is not desirable, that we can work in cooperation with other living systems. So nature is learning through us.
Yeah, what I wanted to say, Poffo, is...
And that's a good thing. Do that when you want to talk about it.
Yeah, that's good, because I realize you can see me, so that's good.
Sure.
Yeah, what I wanted to say is it's not that pantheists or other pagan traditions are personifying nature, like you said.
Well, some pagans do, but that's...
Yeah, well, what I would say is that we, and I'm not talking about just you and I'm talking about all humans and animals, even the bacteria, all these things, these life forms to a certain extent, we are the personifications of nature.
Exactly. There it is.
That's it.
We are the We are the hands and feet. We are the mind of God. We're the hands and feet of the divine, literally like spreading out and forming and becoming these cognitive beings with the capacity to think and reason and judge between what is right and what is wrong. Nature, primitive nature, doesn't care about the individual, about the individual organism. It does on a level of cause and effect. So every action is an equal and opposite reaction, and you suffer the consequences of your action, so it teaches you. But it doesn't care overall. It only cares about the perpetuation of the species. We care about the individuals. We prolong life. We extend human life. We care for and nurture the sick and the elderly and crippled and the disabled. That is nature. That's nature. That's the heart of nature showing compassion on itself. So first and foremost, we have to recognize that we are nature, and that this divine personified being that's out there somewhere, that's separate and apart from us in a transcendent realm, does not exist right now. But what does exist in the natural world, and what God as in nature, the Omnia, what God is becoming. We are becoming that God of myth and legend, that God of ultimate goodness and righteousness and power. And that's the line. That's where we're headed. And so there's a complete ontology here where we recognize, like in the pantheistic model, that the all-knowing, all-powerful Dios, as they would call it, I would call it the Omnia, existed without potential, only in potential, without physical manifestation, literally has transitioned and become this physical universe, and now this physical universe is moving back into coherence and cohesion with itself to become, and it's just a cycle. It's just a torus.
Yeah, I think I get what you're saying in the sense that whatever there was in the past, long time ago, is what became us now. So any power or intelligence that we display, that potential was always there because
was already in
that's
it.
what
Right.
became
It was
us.
already in the singularity. It had to be, because otherwise where did it come from? The universe is a self-organizing, self-sustaining, self-perpetuating sort of, I'm thinking like AI, like Terminator. It grows in its intelligence, exponentially grows through its experience. It's exactly what we are. But the point is, all of this, the potential for all of this was already in that singularity. So God existed. God existed. As people think of God, it existed. It no longer exists now in a conscious, sort of personified, coherent, singular being. It's split up and diversified, and it's everything. It's everything that exists. It's the universe. It's all life forms. And all life forms are becoming more and more compassionate. All life forms are learning to be more intelligent, to be more self-aware. All life forms are learning to work in cohesion and in cooperation with itself. So look, I did this with Trick. Make the trajectory, just follow the path. Where are we headed? We are becoming what people think of typically as God. But that sort of intervening God that suspends the laws of nature, that's a myth.
The type of God that turns the moon into cheese, as Trick would say.
Where do you get that from? He said the same thing.
It's not the first time he's used it. He used the same one on George in one of our Free Will, Science, and Religion episodes about God turning the moon into cheese, and it's a funny example. However, it fits in with the idea that people like Christians believe about God, that God is this intervening God that can break the laws of nature, can actually break the natural order of things and intervene and say, for example, say we're talking Harry Potter type magic they attribute to their God. We're talking about the idea that God could say miraculously change one gender to another, or just make the moon disappear or turn to cheese, or like, for example, the biblical example of God holding the sun still in the sky.
Sure,
really
Joshua. Just so they could win a battle, and there's so many instances of this. And the resurrection of the dead. The healing, healing, people with palsy, people with all these diseases. This is where Peter might come in to sort of to give you a reinterpretation, because nature does have that power. Locked within what's supposedly our junk DNA is all the encoding and the information to change the metabolic, physical structure of an organism. But we have to tap into it. We have to find the codes. The right codes have to be there, because everything that's possible to exist, the potentiality is there. But this is an extreme example, fanciful, obviously, to miraculously heal, to make the blind see again, to make the mute speak. We can almost look at it as, let's say that's the goal. We're working towards that. We are doing that. I mean, with LASIK surgery, with speech apparatuses, with all the prosthetic limbs, with even extending the telomeres, or preventing the telomeres, which is responsible for the aging process, preventing the telomeres from degrading. That is the key to aging. We will eventually, maybe, we have the potential, we have the capacity. Humans may be able to do this. We'll be able to eliminate aging and sickness and eventually death. We'll be able to conquer death. So look at the biblical stories as a metaphor, and maybe like as a far off goal, like an ideal of what we're moving toward, what is actually possible when we work together, when we use creativity and we innovate, and we can understand the biological processes. But it's not going to happen by saying a few words, and doing a little spell. That's not how it's going to happen.
I think I'm going to have to change my approach and how I answer the question, because next person who asks me if I believe in God, I'm going to ask them which one. Because
or you could say I do, but I call it nature. I don't believe in what you would call God, but there is something that's all powerful, that's basically eternal, that is in control of everything, but not in a conscious way.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, see, first of all, I want people to understand that Christianity does not get a monopoly on the word God. Because there are all these different other pagan religions. There's other competing religions such as Islam and Judaism and Hinduism and stuff like that those religions have their different God concepts. And I feel like too much is assumed when someone uses the word God. Unfortunately, reducing it to a yes or no question only doesn't really work. Because
throw out the concept of God. Say there is no God as you see it, as you know it. There is no such thing. But what does exist is the natural world. What does exist are forces and powers that are greater than us, that came before us, that actually influence our lives, greater than any psychological construct that we've invented can. But there are forces and powers that we need to respect, that we need to work work alongside with, that we need to honor, and that actually give us the impetus to do everything that we do. Like these forces and powers that do exist, in nature, whether it's internally, biologically, or externally, it's weather, gravity, electromagnetism, thermodynamics, entropy. These forces are the things that actually govern our lives. We should study physics. We should study science. We should study astronomy, cosmology, microbiology. We should study, ecology. We should study zoology. This is the world we live in. Okay.
Yeah.
And what Biopan does is it brings all the focus away from the supernatural, away from of mysticism, away from these cultural, constructs that don't really serve us, that aren't based in reality, and it's putting all the focus and the emphasis on what actually exists, and saying, no, this is what's miraculous. Our body's ability to heal itself. This is what is beautiful and what is awe-inspiring, and where we should have put our attention on. And that's the whole point. And so it's a completely naturalistic worldview that focuses on what actually matters and gives the honor and the glory to what it should be. But we have to remember, nature is not always beautiful. It's not always kind. It's not always nurturing. It is cruel, and it's indifferent many times, and it's completely random at times, so we have to have a healthy respect. And this is the way people viewed God back in the old days, in the Old Testament. God was the author of both good and evil, until the influence of Zoroastrianism and other religions that created that duality, that there was an all good God and an all evil God. And so they had to create Satan, basically, to explain away evil. They had to create free will to explain why God would create Satan, and then it just you just keep backtracking and with lies.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that, Poffo. See, this is the important thing to understand, is that the free will myth is a religious concept that was invented to explain other things. It goes back to the problem of evil once again, because people like to have their heroes and villains. They like to have their God and they like to have their Satan. They like to have the good and dark.
Polarities, yeah, they see in black and white. They see things in extremes.
They see it that way, and yet, like you said, it's not so simple. It's not that simple, because that goodness and badness is done by all of us. It's not as if we can't look at people as purely good and bad, and we can't look at the concept of, even if you are religious and you believe in these deities, there's just no way you can get away with the wholly good, the wholly evil aspect. And the problem with the whole free will myth is, it's like the free will that they believe in, clearly, even if it existed, does not give us the ability to be good all the time or to be evil all the time. We can't control how our actions are influenced. We don't really have free will, obviously, but we also can't control the effects of our actions, because we can't even know. And like for example, Poffo, before we started this hangout, you and I didn't know all this stuff that we were going to talk about. We just start talking, and then one thing leads to another. It's like a whole predetermined play or movie where nobody knows the script. It's like we don't have a knowledge of what's going to happen. And so what it comes down to is that even ethics, while I hold to, realist ethics or objective ethics, in that there is a right and wrong answer to every ethical decision, to a certain extent, it's guesswork. It's still guesswork by us, because we don't know the outcome.
It's not predetermined. It's not predetermined in a fatalistic sense, but it is influenced by our knowledge, our skills, our abilities, our inclinations, what we're feeling at the moment. It's still, the movie is playing. We're living it out. We're living it out in real time. It's not all. Otherwise, there'd be no purpose to it. I mean, this goes back to my ontology. As part of the whole purpose of existence is to learn and grow and experience novelty.
See, here's the way I look at it, and this is what trips so many people up about determinism, is it's not that things are fatalistic. It's not that things are predetermined to happen regardless of what you do, but that you were predetermined to choose what you do based on your desires, which you did not choose. I mean, and I know it pains me that I have to use that language.
So I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a minute. So what? So someone would say, okay, so what? That doesn't even affect me, because if I'm subject to all these things, I still have the ability to choose, to make choices, whether my ability is contingent upon prior circumstances and an infinite causal chain of events. So what? I still have to decide. I still have to choose. So this is my my challenge to you. I would say, is this really something that is relevant to the extent that it will change things in a significant way on a global scale? Like, not the idea itself, but sort of the idea in relation to the average Joe, to the average citizen. That's what I'm trying to say. See, I would. This is my contention, and I'm not really disagreeing with you, but I would say it's more of a decision of where the emphasis should be. If we could convince people, if we could show people, not convince them, not convert anybody, but literally make them aware, show them the photos from the Hubble Space Telescope, show them, help them understand microbiology, help them understand what extremophiles are, help them understand how fascinating and complex and intricate their own bodies are, and then spread that out, and show them the value of life, show them what is meaningful and what is significant, okay, and get rid of all these archaic, outdated, antiquated societal norms, these concepts that they maintain, which are causing the abhorrent behavior. Shift their focus, instill a new philosophy. Say, there is no God, but there is nature. Okay, it's not that nothing has any value. Everything we do has value, because we are we are nature. We are the ones writing the script. We are the ones making up as we go along. The responsibility is up to us. But if someone messes up, when you see someone fail, when you see someone that's different than you, remember that you're really not that different. Your DNA is 99.9% identical and identical to that tree. And when you see someone make these mistakes and mess up or hurt you, remember that you're an animal. Remember that you have these instincts and these inclinations, but we're not living in a tribal society anymore. That like we can exhibit patience and long suffering and tolerance and forbearance. So because we have the capacity to now. So recognize that you're an animal, but also recognize that you're moving in a direction. There's a trajectory here that you're becoming something more every day, that all organisms, all life is continuously moving toward greater and greater levels of self-awareness, and I would argue greater and greater levels of righteousness, of ethical standards.
I agree with what you're saying here.
Each evolution.
Yeah. See, here's the interesting part about it is that educating people in general about all these facts will lead them. That's another way of dispelling the myth of free will. And it does work, because here's what it comes down to. And for the most part, you're right. It doesn't make a lick of difference as far as, well, you still have to choose what you're going to do. It's the whole thing is that it was still under deterministic universe. You were always going to do that for sure. But the reason it matters is not so much to your daily experience, because I think with the daily experience, it doesn't matter too much. Here's how it has helped me personally, is that it has made me aware that had I been another person, and I had their genetics, I had all their experience, raised the same way, believed the same way, everything had been the same, and I lived their life, I would be doing exactly what they're doing. Had I been Trick Slattery, I would have said exactly everything that Trick said in that his little debate with you. And I would be, if I had been Mitch, I'd be saying the universe is the bag that holds the stuff. I would be
and that's hard. It's hard for me because Mitch pissed me off. And I'll challenge him right now. I'd love to debate that guy. But you're right. If I saw Mitch's life and everything led up to that point, I'd say it makes perfect sense. It's totally understandable. I see where he's coming from. I see what his motivations are. So in that sense, Christians would teach forgiveness and kindness, almost like for kindness' sake, like for the sake of that's how we need to be. Because everybody's sinful, so we just need to forgive everyone. Because you were sinful and God forgave you, and you were, you were corrupt, and so you've experienced this divine salvation. So love and respect and honor others. So that's their take. I would say we're all animals, and exactly what you just said. We're all subject to our environment, to our experiences, to the chain of events that led up to this. So I would say it has more. The best approach would be to teach reality that like literally a person is a combination of all these different things. They're a combination of their hereditary, their genes. They're a combination of the choices they've made. They're a total product of their environment. Just understand that there is an amalgamation of things that lead to everything. That everything is interconnected, and that's not just a catchphrase for pantheists or for you. That means that everything is really connected, so everything affects everything else.
Yeah, see, here's the difference. The difference between my perspective as a determinist and the perspective of a Christian is a Christian who believes in free will. It's like, well, you're an evil, rotten sinner, and you've done wrong to me or my loved ones. But because I'm such a wonderful, great, holy person, I forgive you because look how good I am that I can forgive you. And they become this arrogant forgiveness person.
I don't think in most cases that's their motivation, but that is definitely what ends up happening. That's what ends up happening.
I've seen that.
I think that they're trying to. They're just following their convictions because they believe it to be true, but you can't get away from that. You end up being sanctimonious. But I mean, everybody can end up being sanctimonious, but I'm trying to make the case that if you know yourself and you're honest with yourself, okay, I know everything that's wrong with me, okay, and I know everything that's right with me. And if you have an honest view of yourself and things are in balance and nothing is extreme, avoid extremes at all costs. then there is a greater propensity toward evolution. There's a greater propensity toward civil, just more highly evolved behavior. Is what I'm trying to say. Now that might sound. I mean, people tell me this all the time, that I'm self-righteous. I sound stuck up. I think I'm better than everybody else. I think because I use big words. Because I'm a writer. I constantly get told that I'm, but then I just think, well, just because you don't understand the words I'm using, or you can't comprehend what I'm saying, or because my focus is on a higher ideal, that doesn't mean that I don't recognize my own faults and failures. That doesn't mean I don't recognize my own shortcomings. I do, and I'm not gonna beat myself up and hate myself like I used to as a Christian. Which is another whole reason why to get away from the Abrahamic faith, because it induces guilt, self-condemnation. It promotes self-hatred and this unrealistic an imbalance. It creates an imbalance because your expectations of yourself and your ideals are so far removed from what is practical and reasonable. So the point is, I can accept myself, and I know that life is a process, that everything in life is growing and changing and shifting and evolving. I'm not the same person I was yesterday. My cat just sliced my finger yesterday. You think I would learn? You see the scar? I don't know if you can see it.
I see it.
You think I would learn because he won't let me cut his nails, and he's such a little pain in the ass. He puts his little paw under the door, and I play with him, like I bat his finger. You think I would have learned because I have like 100 scratches and scars on me, but I don't freaking learn, and I still play with him, and he slices my finger open, and I'm bleeding, and it's like, one day I'll learn, but for whatever reason, I relish playing with him, playing with him more than like my own safety. But if I was smart, I would finally get the message and just strap him down and cut his nails, so he doesn't keep slicing me up. But the point is, we learn every day, and we're not the same person that we were. We're not the same person we were 10 minutes ago. We're not the same person we were, a few hours ago, a year ago. So we're always growing, we're always shifting and evolving. On a cellular level, we're not the same organism that we were, 7 to 10 years ago. Like, everything is regrown and regenerated. So the point of this, again, let biology dictate your ethics and your philosophy. So if I'm growing, and if I'm on this path, this trajectory of evolution, I don't have to hate myself. I can forgive myself. I can forgive others, because it's a journey. It's a process. And we're all moving, and we can only do what we're capable of doing. We can only do what we have the ability to do. So
I want to get back to the point I was making.
That eliminates hate. That eliminates vengeance, and of course we'll still react. Our first reaction will be, but we can learn to control those things. We can learn to subdue it. We can learn to use reason and logic, and we can balance it out. We can make choices. With as our education increases, as our knowledge level grows.
Yeah, but I want to get back to the point I was trying to make earlier, and you kind of went off on this long rant. But see,
sorry,
I don't blame you. I don't blame you, because you had no choice, no free will. Remember?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. But see, here's the deal. The point that I was trying to make earlier is that rather than taking credit and bragging about how forgiving I am or how moral I am for forgiving someone, I realized that, yes, if I had their genetics and experiences up to the present moment, I would be doing exactly what happens. And then here's what happens. Now, not everyone can do this, Poffo. I will admit, not everyone can do this. They don't have the biological makeup I do to enable them to do this. But what happens for me in that moment, and I know this is going to sound like really creepy to our audience, but all of a sudden, I imagine myself as that person, realizing, oh, I'm that person, and I have to do this because I'm just doing what I know. I'm doing my biological imperatives, what I've been taught, and all of a sudden I become that person and think, well, how do I want Chandler Klebs to treat me when I did this thing to him? And then all of a sudden, before I know, I'm Chandler Klebs again, and I'm thinking, how do I treat this person?
It's beautiful. That's Chandler. That's pantheism. You are recognizing our essential oneness, the monism of the experience of existence itself, the monism of the universe, that we are all literally one being, just at different points on the journey and in different places, subject to to different experiences that we have. And this gets into something I'm trying to kind of make these points to leave a pathway sort of for Peter, because he believes that the use of entheogens, hallucinogenics, DMT, definitely cannabis, and mushrooms, acid, whatever, LSD. He believes, as the shamans did, smoking peyote and things like that, that this kind of, what you're talking about is the non-duality of existence that pantheists we all recognize. And what I'm saying is, some believe, like Peter, believe that drug use, entheogens, he would call them, can allow for that, because it breaks down the wall, the barrier, where you no longer see yourself as an individual, and you actually literally experience everything as being connected. You actually literally feel one with the chair and the wall, and the water bottle and the cat and yourself and your hat and your clothes. You all of a sudden you lose that sense of differentiated distinction. So he's a proponent of sort of not recreational drug use, but drug use for the expansion of consciousness, and I am not. and I'll tell you why. Because I don't believe that the majority of the population have that intention in mind. I think it's a very select few that use psychedelic drugs in that way. I'm not saying that it's not possible. If you were to learn about my history, that's actually how I became a really spiritual person, was tripping acid when I was 16. And I quit doing drugs and everything, but I just have a very strong ethic when it comes to that I feel like it's too easy to allow it to become a crutch, to abuse the body. I think it's a shortcut. It can be a way to experience divine oneness, but I don't think it's necessary. And I think that we should focus, and this is a huge important point with me, we should focus on an astute, mindful awareness of being in the present moment, and the reality that we were born into. We're not born needing drugs and alcohol and all these different things. We're born, with our senses. I would say our five senses. We have more than five senses, but I would say we're born with our senses, perceiving things as they do, and that's what we should rely upon, is what I'm trying to say, is not this heightened, amplified version of reality, which becomes very confusing, and it can distort everything, and you can come back believing in spirit guides, and that angels are talking to you, and that there are other transcendent realms and dimensions, and none of this is helpful, because we live in the real world. This is what we're born in. This is what we need to focus on. So I go back to naturalism. Naturalism is my core.
Yeah, well, as I just said, I just explained how I do experience the monism. I do experience the oneness, where I literally identify as being that other person, and then treat that person the way that they want to be treated based on how I perceive them. And it's hard to always do that when you're like really upset and emotional. Sure. But for me personally, now I'm not saying this works for everyone, because I don't think everyone gets it. But for me, understanding determinism and understanding psychology and biology in general has enabled me to have this view. So this view flows not from drug use. It flows from this education about the causes of human behavior, which in a sense, it has been my road to having the oneness, that we're all one. It has enabled that, whereas without that, I don't think that I personally would have been able to see it.
So this gets into what is the most efficient, what is the most proficient way to bring about these higher states of consciousness, this higher awareness, which will inevitably, subsequently lead to ethics and morality and a shared altruistic biocentric attitude. Like, what is the most efficient way? I think it's got to be a combination of things.
Yeah.
But on my end, I'm going to work on trying to teach and promote a philosophy that recognizes this, that a worldview that highlights this and emphasizes this as a religion, as a form of religion, not a form of worship, but having a religious attitude toward nature, you know, honor and respecting and really trying to recognize the truth of reality, like the interconnectedness, the interdependency, the beauty, the ugliness, the horror, the struggle, the pleasure, you know, and the joy. It's just a big mix. And I think that the healthiest thing to do is not escape, and not like, you know, not try to find, not use placebos on any level, whether it's drugs or religions. Placebos, they work. It's a real phenomenon, but like when it really comes down to it, they're not as influential as embracing the truth, I believe. So
yeah, I feel like one of the problems with major world religions is they're so large, and that you just have hordes and hordes of people listening to religious leaders teach them a philosophy which they may or may not understand. And Poffo, it's important for you and Peter and I and everyone to make sure that the public is understanding us. And see, that's just it, is that I have to see how you react and my other co-hosts react to the stuff I say, because if I'm not making sense to you guys, then for sure I don't make sense to the rest of the public, because the rest of the public does not have the altered state of consciousness that I live with every day. They don't have the monism the same way I experience it. But right. So it's important. So as far as what's the best way, what's the most efficient way to lead everyone to a life-centered worldview is, well, I'm going to say, yeah, it will be a combination of things, because what works for one person doesn't always work for another. Right,
because we're all different. Yeah, we're all our emphasis, our priorities, our focus, our personalities. So this is why it might actually be really interesting and enjoyable to see me and Peter going at it, because we are juxtaposed, but at the same time, I respect him and I see him as a brother. Like we literally have the same goals, the same biocentric attitude, and yet we're just coming at it from different directions. And he is much more receptive to the ideas that I sort of intuitively reject because of the consequences of the propagation of those. Obviously, I'm talking about religions and religious belief systems. So I want to start over, man. I don't want to go backwards. I don't want to go back and say the Eastern traditions are the best, and the Hinduism or there was a sect of Christians that the Gnostics, pre Marconian and pre Constantine that had it right, and if we could just look at things the way they did, or even this perennial concept that I'll let him explain it to you, but this idea that Aldous Huxley set forth, and I believe they took a little too much from Joseph Campbell. I think they take his words too literally. But these sort of mystical pantheists that I'm talking about, who believe there's a divine ground of being that literally influences and inspires all the world's religions and all the mystical experiences. They're all true on a certain level because they're tapping into something. And what I'm saying is, of course, they're all true on a certain level, because they're all human experiences. That's what unites them all is the universality of it. Is that a word? Universality of it
is now
is the universal aspect of it is that it's human beings that are experiencing these things. Human beings are searching for answers and truth and meaning and purpose. Human beings are looking, for guidance and inspiration and hope and fulfillment and comfort and security. That's what makes them all. That's what they all have in common. Not the doctrines, not the revelations, not the holy books, not the rituals. These are all ways of trying to connect with what is transcendent, with what is beyond. But they're not necessarily accurate or right. This is my contention. So I would say, let go of all that. Don't even mention Christianity. Don't even mention Hinduism. Don't even mention Buddhism. Let go of the pagan notions of gods and goddesses and these personified characters, which I think are all beautiful as metaphors, and I love the pagan aesthetic. But let's start from what we know. Let's create a religion based on reality, based on science and observation and what we know and what is applicable now as a modern species that's evolved to this level of intelligence. It makes absolutely no sense. You want to connect with something older than you? The universe is older than you. You want to connect with something greater than you? The laws of nature are greater than you. You want to have a ritual? Well, mark the passing of the seasons and note the solstices and equinoxes like the pagans did, but also have a modernistic interpretation of it, and recognize the miraculousness of your own body. So these things, this is the shift, away from traditional, conventional religions, and even alternative religions like the New Age. I love the New Age movement for what it represents. Yet at the same time, it's filled with so much, such a hodgepodge of Eastern philosophies and this New Age mysticism, a combination of quantum physics language with Eastern traditions, transcendental meditation. It's just, but the movement itself helps people get away from organized religion. It is a do-it-yourself philosophy. It involves a lot of pantheism. It involves a lot of pantheistic ideas. So it's very important. So I embrace it, but I'm not going to call myself New Age. And I'm gonna reject. Let's see. The tarot card readings. Maybe there's something to it, but I'm not going to promote or support it. Channeling and speaking to your spirit guides, and I'm all about the shifting consciousness. I'm all about moving to this higher planes of consciousness in a naturalistic sense. You see, so I mean, I draw from all these, but I'm not going to identify myself with it. I believe the Biopan should be a uniquely American, English-speaking movement, based on modern Western science that draws from all these sources and recognizes them, but also recognizes their failures and their faults and their flaws.
Yeah. Now I have some things I wanted to say about that, but we've been going for 2 hours about so far, and so I want to end the broadcast. But Poffo, don't go anywhere because I still want to talk to you about some things after that. So how about I'm gonna stop the broadcast, but we're gonna really share everywhere like this talk that we just did, because this has been really good. Oh man, it's been so good. Yeah. So
great. I'm glad I could. I'm glad I could. Contribute.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it now. Bye bye, everybody.
All right. Take care.